One question you people have, one interesting question after all, about a comparative study of Dara Shikoh and Aurangzeb. It is really an interesting question. My student, you are curious about the role of Dara Shikoh and Aurangzeb, and definitely this question is a very mind-boggling question today, because since the last 2 to 3 days, Dara Shikoh has caught up the imagination of political leaders as well, and he was being projected as the possible deliverer of India. It is very natural that we can explain the relationship between Aurangzeb and Dara Shikoh. In fact, whenever we give focus over Aurangzeb and Dara Shikoh, a very interesting question is whether the relationship between the two guys, two personalities, just reflect some ideological contest or a contest for power. So whenever you will observe this thing, you will find that it was less ideological conflict and more as a conflict for power, contest for power. This point would be clear to you whenever you will hear one of the stories briefed about him by a very reputed scholar, Audrey Truskey. She has mentioned the first one event when Dara Shikoh and Aurangzeb both were clearly the child, kids like thing, and both were the very preferred child of Shah Jahan. So possibly you people might have heard about a story. In Mughal Empire, there was a long tradition of revolt by son against the father. Jahangir did earlier against Akbar, and even Shah Jahan did the same thing against Jahangir. Shah Jahan revolted against Jahangir, and even he tried to capture his treasury, but Mahabad Khan foiled his effort, and finally he just moved towards South India and he got patronage there by from a local king. But anyhow, good sense prevailed to Jahangir, and he came to realize that after all, Shah Jahan was definitely his most competent son, and he might be a future successor as well. So there should be better treatment to Shah Jahan. So after all, there was the rapprochement on patch-up between the father and son. But even after the patch-up, you can say that as it was a power contest, so Jahangir was not satisfied. He just demanded some guarantee of the good behavior on the part of Shah Jahan in future. So as a token of goodwill, he decided to catch up his two sons and keep them as the hostage under him. And the two sons were Dara Shikoh and Aurangzeb. So although they were living there just like the grandson, but practically they were the hostages, they were the prisoners. And Shah Jahan, he was ruling, but Shah Jahan was keeping his eyes over his two sons, and he was missing his two sons because both were dear to him. He was waiting for the opportunity and the day when Jahangir died and Shah Jahan recaptured the power while eliminating his other brothers. So he rushed towards Agra, and first of all he released his two sons. So as the father and sons both were just seeing each other after a long time, so definitely the sons were very emotional after observing the father, and both of them, Dara Shikoh and Aurangzeb, both rushed towards Shah Jahan while opening their arms to embrace him. And Shah Jahan caught up Dara Shikoh first, embraced him, while slightly neglecting Aurangzeb. So right from the time Aurangzeb developed a sense that possibly Shah Jahan is doing a step fatherly treatment to me. So right from that time you can see he developed some sort of grudge. This was the first factor. Second one factor is it is true by conviction, by faith, Dara Shikoh was definitely much liberal. He was even characterized as the small Akbar, the lesser Akbar or Laghu Akbar, proxy Akbar, even you can say, because he carried the liberal policy of Akbar one step further. Akbar devised the Hindu-Muslim unity on the basis of social and political relations. But it was Dara Shikoh who tried to bridge a gap between two cultures. He composed the famous text Majm-ul-Bahrain, the meeting of rivers into the ocean. And he was having such a fascination for Indian Sanskritic culture that he is given the credit to have got translated at least 52 Upanishads with the support of the Pandits of Benares. And that was called Sirare-Akbar. He himself translated Yog Vasisht and so on. He was himself a great scholar of Sanskrit. So Dara Shikoh, you can say a superb scholar of his time. He was definitely the burning example of the two cultures, etc. But now question arises, on the other hand, just take the example of Aurangzeb. Aurangzeb was an out and out orthodox. He just tried to enforce the but he was having his personal conviction just like an orthodox Sunni Muslim at personal level. But here my point is, my student, the personal conviction is one thing and the royal policy is another. It is true that Shah Jahan was also an orthodox Sunni Muslim in his personal conviction. And even Jahangir was not so liberal in his personal conviction. Even Akbar was divided. But question is whether ideology was going to affect the statecraft in totality. Whether Dara Shikoh could have been and would have been the Badshah of India, or he might have got the accession directly from Shah Jahan, then there could have been complete disruption in the policy. This is in the womb of history. We cannot explain this, what could have been the direction. But the present point is that it is true that Dara Shikoh was much more liberal than Aurangzeb in his personal conviction. But what happened, in context of the War of Succession, was it simply a reflection of ideological contest? No. First factor is the personal grudge of Aurangzeb I have mentioned. The second one, this is inherent in Taimuri and Changiz tradition. Always there is some tradition lingered on. And what was the tradition? All the Central Asian empires and all the Central Asian emperors preferred to divide their empire into different successors. Although in India, Akbar rejected this system. He preferred centralization. But my student, some sort of hangover of Central Asian tradition continued in India as well. So it is due to the factor the system of primogeniture was never established in India. Primogeniture means the throne to the elder son. Primogeniture means the throne to the elder son. So this throne to the elder son, this particular tradition didn't continue in India and it was not respected. So almost in every succession matter became bloody, conflict based, and it created a great commotion in the empire. So this is the second one factor. This confused tradition of Taimur and Changiz. Third one factor was Aurangzeb was personally too much ambitious. He didn't allow Dara Shikoh to take the throne. Shah Jahan was apprehensive about the fact because he himself had earlier fought the war of succession with his brothers. So he was apprehensive. This question might arise even among his students. So he took proper precautionary measure. What was his precautionary measure? He, during his lifetime, he promoted Dara Shikoh. He created a new throne in his court. That was a small size throne, and Dara Shikoh was allowed to sit there. He was given the title of Wali Ahad, and there is an administrative post, and you can say there is the administrative status. Whenever you go through the Mughal period, you will come to know about a very famous administrative status that is called Jat rank. So he consciously upgraded his Jat rank from 40,000 to 60,000. That was at that time, you can see, that was a greater, you can say, achievement at that time, because 40,000 to 60,000 was such a big mark which had not so far been enjoyed by any Mughal emperor or Mughal king. But my student, be clear, Aurangzeb could not tolerate this. And particularly Aurangzeb was in Deccan at that time. He was just working as the Subedar of Deccan. And Dara Shikoh was working as the Wali Ahad in the court. And Aurangzeb tried to follow his independent policy in context of Deccani states like Bijapur and Golconda. He picked up a war against Bijapur and Golconda and tried to eliminate them. In the very beginning, in 1657, 56, 57, I am just telling you. But Shah Jahan or Mughal court intervened and just passed an order to Aurangzeb to stop the war as early as possible. So as the war was, stopped in the middle course, so Aurangzeb came to realize, or Aurangzeb was almost convinced that Shah Jahan did so at the behest of Dara Shikoh. So it created further cleavage between the two. Here I have to inform you that once Jahan Ara Begum, although he was having the soft corner for Dara Shikoh, not for Aurangzeb, but she was a very prestigious lady in Mughal Empire, so all the brothers were taking advice from her. So Aurangzeb just talked to Jahan Ara Begum once. Actually, there was some burning case. She was injured due to burning. So all the Mughal princes, the Mughal important officers, all just came to visit her in order to give her consolation and to wish for her health. So even Aurangzeb went there. At that time, Aurangzeb was the governor of Gujarat. So in common conversation with Jahan Ara Begum, Aurangzeb was so frustrated. In the moment of frustration, even he revealed, now I am planning to be a ulema and to withdraw from this mundane life and to lead a life of a saint, an isolated life I prefer. But Jahan Ara Begum just tried to persuade him, no, don't get so much frustrated and so on. So this is the case. And last but not the least, if it could have been an ideological conflict, then when the war of succession started, so all the Hindu Mughal Mansabdars would have defected to the side of Dara Shikoh and all the Muslim Mansabdars towards Aurangzeb. But as Athar Ali, a very reputed historian from Aligarh University, he has made a statistical interpretation of the whole event, and he has presented statistical data. Whenever you will just divide all Mansabdars and try to observe the Mansabdars who were involved into this war of succession, you will come to realize that from the side of Dara Shikoh, if you are going to count simply Mansabdars who were having the rank of 1,000 Jat, so at least 23 Mansabdars were fighting on the behalf of, and you can say taking the side of Dara Shikoh, and 21 Mansabdars on the side of Aurangzeb. So my students, just try to realize that if it could have been a religious war, it could have been an ideological war, so at least the Hindus should have stand by Dara Shikoh, not by Aurangzeb. And if you will find two more number in favor of Dara Shikoh, so it is due to the fact that after all, Dara Shikoh was representing the Agra, Shah Jahan. So this is the case. And the second one thing you find, even in course of the war of succession, when Aurangzeb came to realize one of the important Mansabdars of the time, he was from Sisodia family of Mewar. You might have heard the name of Rana Raj Singh. He was the successor of Amar Singh, the son of Amar Singh. So automatically you can say that Amar Singh should have taken the side of Dara Shikoh, because after all Amar Singh was working, sorry, not Amar Singh, Rana Raj Singh, because his son 𝐾𝐨𝐮𝐬𝐬 Singh was working as a Mansabdar, Mughal Mansabdar, so he should have taken the side of Dara Shikoh. So for that fear, he wrote a letter to Rana Raj Singh directly. That is known as Uday Singh Nishan. In this letter, you will be surprised to know that what a diplomatic acumen Aurangzeb displayed at that time during this critical juncture to outwit Dara Shikoh. In this letter, he mentioned that if in this war of succession, you and your family is not going to join Dara Shikoh against me, so I am giving you the promise that after the conquest and being the emperor of Hindustan, I will return all the Parganas which my father had taken from you and captured from you in order to punish you. And I am also giving you the promise that the Sisodiya of Mewar would enjoy such a freedom which they had never enjoyed right from the time of Maharana Sangha. And you will be surprised to know that at that time, there is the one Mansabdar, 𝐘𝐨𝐮𝐓𝐿 Singh. He was from Jodhpur, and he had to fight on the side of Dara Shikoh. And he was the pillar of the Mughal army at that time. And all hope was just banking on 𝐘𝐨𝐮𝐬𝐬 Singh. And then Dara Shikoh sent a letter to Rana Raj Singh कि just help 𝐘𝐨𝐮𝐬𝐬 Singh. So help 𝐘𝐨𝐮𝐬𝐬 Singh, you can say, but he was the son of 𝐾𝐨𝐮𝐬𝐬 Singh, you can say, not 𝐾𝐨𝐮 Singh. Rana Raj Singh was the son of 𝐾𝐨𝐮 Singh. Once again, I have to make the hierarchy of Sisodias clear because it has been slightly confusing. Maharana Pratap, the son of Maharana Pratap, was Amar Singh. Amar Singh was himself preferred to be free from Mughal service. And then the son of Amar Singh was Rana 𝐾𝐨𝐮 Singh. 𝐾𝐨𝐮 Singh joined the service, and the successor of 𝐾𝐨𝐮 Singh was Raj Singh. So Raj Singh was there. So let me make this hierarchy clear first. So in Raj Singh, Dara Shikoh just demanded the help that better to come with an army and join 𝐘𝐨𝐮 Singh against Aurangzeb. And 𝐘𝐨𝐮 Singh already planned with Rana Raj Singh that both the army had to merge with each other at Pushkar. And 𝐘𝐨𝐮 Singh had been waiting at Pushkar for the arrival of Rana Raj Singh. And Rana Raj Singh didn't turn up due to this letter that is known as Udaipur Nishan. So this is the diplomacy and common diplomacy Aurangzeb shown. And last but one more or concluding point, even after being the emperor in Aurangzeb's empire, you will be surprised to know that the largest official post of 7,000 Jat and Savar were not given to any Muslim Mansabdar, rather a Rajput Mansabdar, two Rajput Mansabdars, 𝐘𝐨𝐮 Singh and Mijah Raja 𝐽𝐿 Singh from Jaipur Gharana. So my student, it was not an ideological battle, rather it was the power contest. I think you people may be clear.
ऑनलाइन लाइव बैच और ऑनलाइन रिकॉर्डेड कोर्स का संचालन हमारे एप्लीकेशन द स्टडी बाय मणिकांत सिंह पर किया जाता है। एप्लीकेशन को डाउनलोड करने का लिंक वीडियो के डिस्क्रिप्शन में दे दिया गया है। अधिक जानकारी के लिए स्क्रीन पे दिए गए फोन नंबर पर हमसे संपर्क करें या हमारे YouTube चैनल को सब्सक्राइब करें। थैंक यू।